actually role-playing in Deus Ex is limited to playstyle. Do I want to be a melee character? A sniper? A pistol-wielding infiltrator? A tank, perhaps? Beyond that, there is almost no ability to express yourself. There are some binary dialogue options you can pick at certain points that express a particular attitude, but you will notice that they're rare, and they only pop up when there's a right choice to be made that will give you a reward, while the other option scuttles it. So you're not so much picking what kind of character you want JC to be, because you so rarely get to make these decisions. JC just has pre-written, boring, uninterested dialogue the rest of the time. But rather you want the reward. Given that there is so little ability to express yourself, you're not really going to become attached to the idea of trading off between being true to your character and getting the reward, because you won't really care about your character because you don't really get to define who JC is. So you're just going to pick the right option and take the trinket, whether it's a key or a password or something like that. A decision emphasized early on in the game, in the beginning, is whether to use lethal or non-lethal force. If you kill a lot of people at Liberty Island or Castle Clinton, Paul and Carter will admonish you. However, these, and whether you kill or knock out Rock in the Brooklyn Bridge station, are the only times your choice to kill or not is actually brought up. From the airfield onward, no one cares if you massacre every enemy in your path. There are no repercussions whatsoever, and there's no benefits to not doing so. In fact, there's only one repercussion in the whole game for killing people. Carter won't give you a couple of assault rifle clips if you kill people in Castle Clinton. That's it. It's like the game brings up this idea, and then gets bored of it, and decides it doesn't care anymore. Furthermore, the only ranged, non-lethal weapon, the mini crossbow, with tranquilizer darts loaded, is an utter failure of design. Putting aside the fact that using a miniature crossbow in 2052 is absolutely absurd, the weapon is actually pretty useful as a stealthy weapon, but only with lethal darts loaded, because they kill with a single headshot, whereas the silenced pistol doesn't unless you upgrade it. Tranquilizer darts cause enemies to take damage over several seconds until they are knocked out, during which time they are free to run around, triggering alarms, alerting other enemies, and shooting at you. So contrary to what you might think, you can't be stealthy and non-lethal because of how tranq darts work. All they do is cause more trouble to you. So to be honest, trying to use them is simply not worth the hassle. Combined with the fact that the Dragon's Tooth is the best melee weapon, so the stun prod stops being useful once you get it, and there is basically no reason at all to use non-lethal force in Deus Ex. So much for that choice. Speaking of which, let's discuss a pervasive myth that Deus Ex gives you control over the story. It does not. There are only 4 meaningful choices in the entire game, and only one of those, the ending, actually affects the story. The other 3 are whether to kill Navarra on the 747, which simply gives you information about MJ-12 from Lebedev before you get it from Paul, which you would have if Lebedev had died. The second is whether Paul dies or not. You'd think this would be a big deal, but the thing is, the game isn't actually designed for Paul to be in it. The game has to keep making up excuses as to why he can't take part in the story. And eventually it just hand-waves his existence, and you don't talk to him ever again until the very end of the game. It's all very contrived, because there really isn't any good reason for Paul not to help JC take down MJ-12. But that would mean you'd have to design 2 versions of every mission. One to accommodate Paul, where Paul is there and helps out, and one without. And the technical hurdles for the game's engine alone would be enough to scuttle such an endeavor, let alone the amount of work it would take to do that. And just to add insult to injury, Invisible War doesn't care which you picked. Paul is alive. Period. Fantastic. Such choice. There's also the choice to tell Jaime either to stay at UNATCO as a spy, or to come to Hong Kong with JC. The former nets you Gunther's kill phrase, so that you don't actually have to fight that boss battle, while the latter nets you an AUG upgrade, which are very rare and thus appreciated. This is, honestly, the most tangible and meaningful choice other than the ending in the whole game, and you don't even know what the outcome's going to be when you make it. So I will grant them this one. This one was well implemented. Other than that, you can only choose the ending, which is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the game poses a lot of moral and philosophical quandaries which each choice you make, and it's up to you to decide what you ultimately think is best. It's the only such open-ended choice in the whole game, and thus it is the best one. And I'll flesh that out more when I make a video about it. But on the other hand, it doesn't matter which one you pick, because Invisible War just goes, lol, they all happen so we can start the game with one unified world state, thus nullifying all the pondering that went into making the choice, because JC gets to have his cake and eat it as well. Now, this isn't Deus Ex's fault per se, but it is the devs' fault, as it's the same team, same company, and they handled this poorly.